We really appreciate the new Wingate Center of Art and Design. We've got a great, clean facility. The layout is very conducive to working. We have all the up-to-date safety features. There's a huge advantage to learning a little bit of everything, or at least getting the experience in another field. The arts really thrive in a collaborative community. So students here can take one woodworking class, they might take one graphic design class, and then in between those two classes, they might learn how to make a sign. So there's a huge friendship, I think. It's not just the collaboration between the different departments. When they leave here, they're gonna know how, know why, and know what. And I think those are really important problem-solving skills to approach anything, whether it's graphic design, theater design, or woodworking. One of my favorite things about working here is the relationship with colleagues and students. If there's a competitive nature here, it's a healthy one because it's one of collaboration, and the students push each other to achieve better things, and the faculty push each other to achieve better things as well.
Hey, my name is Peter Scheid. I teach woodworking and furniture design here. I teach a couple of freshman design classes, and then I'm also the BFA coordinator. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about digital fabrication today, but I wanted to lead into that by talking about design, because that's a word that we just use, you know, in the entire intro we keep saying design. You know, I keep saying furniture design, woodworking, you're hearing graphic design. So for me, part of an arts education is not exactly about what you learn, it's how you learn it, and it's a method of thinking and problem solving and finding creative solutions to the problem. So hopefully you've got a pencil and paper with you. I'm going to give you a minute to like pull that out because we're going to kind of all work through an exercise together in a couple minutes. All right, so if you're ready, what I want you to do is take about 10 seconds and we're all going to draw a table kind of as quickly as we can. We're going to draw a table. All right, so what I want you to do is, like, if you're in a room with somebody, look around the room and how many of you drew a table that looks like this, right? So Caleb is sitting over here monitoring the chat, right? And we drew the exact same table. And what's funny about this is if I give you longer time to draw, you don't really end up changing the table. You just end up putting maybe a little more detail on the same table, right? But the concept of the table hasn't changed. So the first thing we want to do in design thinking is we have to define the problem. So draw a table is too broad. It's too broad a place to start. So I'm going to ask you to, in the chat, tell me, you know, what is a table, right? What does a table do? No. So this is easy. There's no kind of right or wrong. Think about all the different tables you've used. Put stuff on it, right? What else? Why do you put stuff on the table, right? Because you're not putting it on the floor, so it needs to elevate. What else do you do at a table? Eat, good. So eating, we can break that down further, right? So it has to hold the plates. You know, we might actually have to put a chair next to it. So right now we're kind of starting to describe a dining table, but what other kinds of tables are there maybe?
Like congregation.
Yeah, congregating. Right, so that table is going to be bigger.
Coffee table.
Good, okay, now we're on a roll. So think about a coffee table, right? If a coffee table is in front of your couch and it was as tall as a dining table is, you couldn't watch the TV, right? Or you couldn't put your feet on it.
Like board games.
Okay, good. All right, so we're going to choose one of these as our problem. You know, so let's look at this last one here, the coffee table, right? You know, so we might play board games on a coffee table. We're not going to use a chair at a coffee table, but we do put stuff on it, and it needs to elevate it off the floor. So now we've started to like kind of define a problem that's a little more specific. So the next thing we want to do is called ideate. So in this stage of the design process, we're not judging anything. The goal is to kind of hit a flow between pen and paper. And we want to get as many ideas as possible onto the page. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to keep our pen or pencil moving, and I'm going to draw as many different kind of shapes for a tabletop for my coffee table as I could imagine. So, I might start with the square, which we all drew, and then, maybe I'm going to, go to a rectangle and then a circle, so just follow along, and I'm going to fill this page up with as many different shapes as I can imagine. All right, so if you've been doing the same, now what we're going to do is I'm going to look at all these different shapes I've created for my tabletop, and I'm going to choose one that I think is the best. So now I'm going to slow down a little bit, and I want to judge and evaluate. So I've seen these before. They work well. This shape I kind of drew twice for some reason. Just in a different variation. So I'm going to take this shape. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to iterate that. So again, now I'm in a little bit of a low gear. I've slowed down. I'm going to draw that shape. And I'm going to draw that shape over and over, but I'm going to make very, very small changes, and I'm going to try and refine and hone that shape into what my kind of final tabletop is going to look like. So at this stage, I'm starting to think about proportions. What if this was really long and skinny? See, it's still the same shape, but I've really stretched those proportions out. Or maybe there's even a little bit, something else in there. So now that I've kind of iterated, now I'm going to take the shape that I think is going to work the best for my coffee table. I have a longer couch, so I think it's actually going to be one of these kind of longer shapes because it's going to fit my couch. So now I might start working on my final design. So I'm going to start drawing a little bit more refined design sketch. Maybe there's a tapered leg in there. Or maybe even instead of a leg at this end, I might have kind of like a plinth style leg. So now what I want you to do is kind of look at your paper and look around the room, and hopefully now you'll see that everybody kind of has designed their own table. And they're different, but they're all, like workable solutions to the same problem, which we identified was being a coffee table. So the important part about kind of design thinking is that it's non-linear. So once we have a design, we're going to start moving into a prototyping phase where we're going to build a small model of that, and it's going to help solve more problems before we move into a full-scale model. So what I have over here are a couple models that we've built with the laser cutter. We're going to look at that in a couple minutes. But these are all models, and again, even though we're prototyping, we're still working iteratively, and we're changing a small thing, we're refining it, we're trying to find a solution to this problem. We've changed the height.
How did you get started in woodworking?
How did I get started in woodworking? my dad was a carpenter and a high school shop teacher, so I got started really, really early, and thinking back, I probably, I didn't really have a choice back then. You're just, like, it's the weekend and dad needs help on the job site, so that's where I was. Yeah, so we've got a lot of samples here. So, again, we're kind of working through the problem. You can see here we have the small model, and there's a joint at the corner. So before we build the big stool, we're going to work through just that joint using the machines and the technology to make sure this is going to be successful. You might hear people say a lot of times, the most valuable thing is your time. And that's really true. This material has a cost, but we can't spend 4 days working on something without knowing that it's going to be a success. In woodworking and a lot of other design fields, you have to really plan your steps out. You kind of want to move into things with as much certainty as possible before you work at a full scale.
I heard UA Little Rock has the only woodworking program in the state. Is that true?
Yeah, so UA Little Rock has the only kind of woodworking program in the state. Like I said earlier, it's really about, for me, teaching in the craft field is really about teaching a way of kind of solving problems. And I'm also teaching specific tools. So we'll move into the laser cutter, I think, now. But these are projects that students did this semester using a laser cutter and a computer. So while this student is not a woodworking student, we're thinking through the problem the same way, right? We're thinking iteratively, we're trying to ideate. So these are all laser cut paper that the students kind of built a pattern on the computer, cut it out, and then glued it together. So these are examples of, this is a freshman design class, 2D design. All right, so we're gonna move over here into the laser. I want to show a couple. We'll kind of walk over the laser and show a couple things. So this is a laser cutter right here, and we've got, so back here we have a laser tube, which is gonna, all those electrons kind of get excited. They're bouncing around. And then in here we have a series of 2 or 3 mirrors that are going to direct that beam of light down onto the work surface, and it's going to make the cut. So when we're working with the laser cutter, there's a couple of different cuts that we can make. One cut is going to be a vector cut, and it's going to cut all the way through the material. Then we have a kind of a rastering cut, which is going to engrave the material, and that won't cut all the way through. And that's how we kind of put text on things in here. And then the third cut might be a vector engrave, where, again, we're kind of following this geometry, but we're not cutting all the way through.
Raster, vector, what is that?
So RAS, if anyone's ever taken a kind of computer applications course or used the computer for art, a raster and a vector, if you think about like a SVG maybe, or a scalable vector graphic, when you take something like a photo, pixels are really important, and you only have so much resolution. A vector is mathematically defined, so I can scale it up infinitely. So the smaller models that I showed, we're able to cut at a very small scale, or I can blow it up in the computer to actual or real scale, and cut it out, and I'm using the same file because, again, it's mathematically defined very accurately. So we're going to turn the laser cutter on here. So here we have a gantry, and it's going to move this laser cutter head. And that's going to kind of trace out our file and cut it from the material, in this case, this small piece of plywood. My students hear me say this all the time. A computer isn't smart. It's only as smart as the operator, right? So we have to make sure we tell the machine exactly how to cut We have to tell it how fast to move, how much power to use when it's making the cut. So one thing we have to do is kind of locate that material very precisely away from the lens of the laser cutter, just like if we were kind of taking a picture, right? We have to be a certain distance from the lens to make sure the image is in focus. So the question was, what kind of jobs can you do with a woodworking degree? My kind of recent students that have graduated, you know, either with a degree in woodworking or with a certificate, one of them is working in a sign shop. So they have, you know, they might have a laser cutter or they're going to have a vinyl cutter. It's kind of very similar machine. You know, some woodworkers pursue a kind of studio arts you know, career like Kensuke was talking about earlier. There's a lot of woodworkers who end up kind of managing things in factories. Again, you know, we're really educating you in a way to think, a way to problem solve. So that's going to set you up for success in any number of kind of more specific fields, is because you have a really good kind of problem solving mentality. So the benefits of working with a computer versus working by hand. For me, it's really important to work between the two. The danger with the computer is you get sucked into a micro level really early. So in here, when we're working, we would always do our design process very organically in a sketchbook before we even like touch the mouse. The computer is really accurate and it can speed things up. But anytime you're working with a tool that's fast, that means mistakes happen fast. You know, mistake not necessarily meaning a dangerous mistake, but a mistake meaning you might make a design change and not realize the kind of domino effect that has. Again, on the computer, you can really get sucked into this micro level, and it's important to kind of zoom out and get a holistic picture. You know, and remember, okay, I'm working on a coffee table and it has to sit next to a couch. And when you're in the virtual screen, you sometimes forget that. All right, so we're going to cut out a file that we already have of a stool. So over here, I'm kind of placing the origin. I'm going to close the laser cutter. I'll turn the fan on. It gets a little loud. And then we just hit go over here, and we'll start, you know, so we're cutting that out. This file is going to take about 3 minutes to cut, so if you've got other questions that are unanswered right now. No? All right, so I'm going to walk back over here. I've got a couple other projects to show you that freshmen have made this year. So these are two kind of laser cut projects that were done in a, is that too loud to talk over? Okay. So these are two kind of like vessels that were made in our foundation level design class, our 3D design. You know, so here we've got a little bowl. So this was entirely designed on the computer and cut on the laser cutter. And then the other project they do is a lamp, you know, so again, a kind of a similar form with a light bulb in it. So kind of a fun functional project. And then I've got, I think in the intro, Andy talked about the holiday kind of craft sale. So these were ornaments that some woodworking students designed and sold as a fundraiser. Again, you know, kind of working with the digital technology we have here. You know, and then we've got one that's the kind of building logo that you've probably seen around. No more questions? What's the relationship between art and design? All right, so someone asked, what's the relationship between art and design? For me, I think with design, you're always kind of approaching a problem to solve, and that problem may be kind of outside of your own realm. And art, oftentimes, the kind of like impetus or inspiration comes from within, and it's very personal. And in the design realm, there's a lot of designers who work very personally and use personal inspiration, but oftentimes that kind of first kernel or that kind of first inspiration is actually like somebody else's problem. And it could be, again, it could be as simple as like somebody needs a coffee table, or it might be, how do we solve the problem of plastics in the ocean, right? And you would approach that from a design thinking perspective.
What's the advantage of getting an art degree at UA Little Rock rather than somewhere else?
What's the advantage of getting an art degree at UA Little Rock instead of somewhere else? There's a lot of advantages. The facility is really great. The kind of cost per value of education is really high. I think you get a really excellent education here for a good value. And then two, I think you'll see today that the kind of faculty, we have some really great faculty. A lot of smoke. So here's the model that we just cut out. So again, this is a real advantage of working digitally, is I know that every time I cut this model out that these parts are going to fit really precisely together. And then I also know that when I scale this up to kind of full scale so someone could actually sit on it, I know that it's still going to fit together and that the leg, right? I know that when it's full scale, the leg is still going to have the same relation to the back here and the same relation to the seat, and it's all going to fit together the way it needs to be a successful project. All right, oh, almost getting it to stick together without glue.
Can you show us one of the sculptural wood things?
A sculptural, so someone asked if we could show a sculptural wood thing. Yeah, so this is a carving assignment. I think this is a good example. This was made by a painting student in the woodworking class. So the assignment is to, like if you've imagined kind of two Siamese fruit, and then, carve it and, representationally or a little abstractly, carve that out of solid wood and then paint it. So we've got like, yeah, there's a ton of scholarships available within the, specifically within the Department of Art and Design. And I'm personally am on the scholarship committee, and we just finished kind of awarding the scholarships, which is really fun and exciting, to be able to help a student, financially attend school here. But yeah, we have, the Wingate Foundation, the names on the building, they funded, my job basically. I'm the Wingate Assistant Professor of Furniture. You'll see their name kind of throughout town. They're incredibly generous in, not only Central Arkansas, but the state of Arkansas. All right, we've got anything? So, no more questions? So I've just got some other projects here I can show you. So again, this is an example of a project a student made in the Intro to Furniture class. No previous woodworking experience, so they, drew the shape of Baby Yoda on the computer, and then we used the CNC, which is kind of a larger tool than the laser cutter, to cut this out of solid wood. After she kind of, glued it up and machined the wood and sanded it. I don't know if you guys can see. I can hold them up. You can see these?
You can see the
So this is a project that a group of students did a couple years ago. So if you ever take a tour of the building or you attend here, they built this furniture for, we kind of have like a little cafe style space in the building. So again, you can see them kind of thinking through the design process.
Can you talk about opportunities to put furniture in the building, actually?
Yeah. So there's a lot of opportunities to put furniture in the building. Two of the BFA furniture students right now, one is sitting right here, Mr. Caleb Lefevre, are currently kind of working on a project. Collaboratively, they're building benches for the building using wood that was harvested from campus, and we've sawn and dried on campus. So, I think furniture is...
You don't have to have any experience to take a woodworking class. We talked about safety if I've never touched a saw.
Yeah, so you don't need any experience to take a woodworking class. We talk a ton about safety. A lot of the feedback that I get from students is often, kind of how appreciative they are of that, and like kind of walking into a wood shop can be intimidating because it is a kind of dangerous space. So again, that's a huge advantage of learning woodworking through a program, is that safety is always a really big concern. So, if you do happen to become a professional woodworker, you're going to have that kind of foundation of, working safely, thinking safely, that relates to everything you do in the shop, tools and machinery. Was there another question? No.
Do you ever work with other materials other than wood?
Yeah, so the question is, do I ever work with materials other than wood? Yeah, all the time. Again, if you kind of think about furniture, there might be upholstery on it. Here in this program, we use steel a lot. So we might build a table that has metal legs. You may not see, but the table I'm kind of standing in front of, we built here. And I think that's one of my passions in woodworking is you are able to kind of build things that you use daily. And my students I see share that pride a lot too. It's like, again, you may not end up being a woodworker, and maybe you end up, what did Ken say, drawing Dragon Ball Z cartoons. But you might be drawing those cartoons on a table that you built yourself. And I think that's like kind of really, really powerful and exciting as a student to have something that's going to last for decades.
How difficult is it to hand carve pieces like the fruit assignment? Can you tell us more about that process?
Okay, so we're going to walk back over here, I guess. So how difficult is it to hand carve wood? It's pretty difficult. This is one of the more difficult assignments, but students really enjoy it because it is rewarding. Overall, wood is not like clay at all. Like you saw Ken kind of working really immediately, and I just spent 20 minutes talking about how planning is important. But carving is a way in woodworking to work really immediately, and to kind of have this very different relationship to your material. So yeah, this is difficult, but again, this is an intro level assignment, so the students who came in may not have ever, maybe they whittled the stick to roast marshmallow on, but they kind of had no other carving experience besides that. So these up here on the shelf are also laser cut, so it's a very, very thin layer of wood or veneer that's been kind of cut, and then a marquetry panel. So again, this isn't, we call it woodworking and furniture design, but here we have a really kind of graphic two-dimensional project that's using wood as a material and using the technology that we might use to build a piece of furniture, but we're using it to kind of build, a very kind of like almost, graphic design project almost. Those are, yeah, good.
So drawing is important for woodworking too?
Drawing is super important in woodworking. In here, drawing is like, I like to think about it as a tool for communication. And that's the fastest way to communicate with somebody. And if have a student who's thinking about something in their head, you may not have the words to describe it, but if you can draw it, I'll help you find a way to build it. But drawing is for me, drawing is incredibly important. I think it might even go back to carving, where drawing can be a really immediate, fast way of working. And much of woodworking is not fast, right? You kind of take your time, you think, you plan. But when you're in the drawing stage, you can work as fast as you want to, and the sky's the limit. The sky's the limit with drawing.
So if you were trying to quickly iterate, but you were doing it on a computer, would you recommend doing that in a sketchbook or?
So now there's kind of all kinds of really Procreate, or there's all kinds of drawing programs on your tablet that students use, which I really encourage. I personally use a sketchbook because that's what I'm most comfortable in. The one thing I would advise you if you're, well, so the question was, I guess, the question is drawing in the sketchbook or drawing on the computer. So I was saying, they have these really great, Procreate, there's all these tablet drawing programs. One thing that I'm seeing my students do, though, is they'll draw something on the tablet and then delete it right away, or they'll erase it. And my rule for my students in my sketchbook is you never erase anything, because you never know when you might flip back to it and it's valuable. And space on your computer is so cheap, so I want you to approach that the same way. So it's if you draw it and it's not working, just flip to another page, or pan out and draw it in the margin of another. Don't ever delete something in your sketchbook or erase it.
Do you teach computer programs to help design furniture projects?
So someone asked, do I teach computer programs to help design furniture projects? Yes, we use, the specifics, we use Fusion 360 and Rhino a lot. There's free ones out there like Vector.com, Illustrator. The Adobe suite is great, but it's really expensive. So oftentimes I'm encouraging students to find a program that kind of suits their pocketbook. But yeah, we try and use digital tools in a very kind of fluid manner. I want you to be using them in here. I don't want you to have to go to the computer lab. I want you to kind of just see it as another tool in the wood shop.
Do you have to have computer program experience to succeed in the class?
Do you have to have computer program experience to succeed in the class? No, definitely not. Again, it's some students may come in and they have a lot of experience with a specific program, and some don't have any, but the classes are designed to be challenging for every level, and again, some students might come in and they've had a ceramics program at their high school, so they're familiar with a kiln, and some students maybe have never used a kiln before. So I think we're winding down. Are there any questions?
Someone asked again, how long might a piece such as the fruit carving take?
So how long might a piece such as the fruit carving take? We'd have to ask the specific student. I think the assignment is about, it's relative, maybe 2 weeks long, so they spent significant hours kind of carving that. Painting is the quick part, it's kind of carving and sanding that takes time.
What's your favorite part of working at the Wingate Center?
What's my favorite part of working at the Wingate Center? For me, it's my colleagues and my students. And two, we're in kind of very close proximity to each other, which I think is really important. Again, you're going to come here and you may not know where your passion lies, but you could take a class in each of these and then discover that you want to be a woodworker, but you could still take a clay class, you could still take a drawing class, graphic design. I really encourage especially as a younger kind of student, you want a real kind of breadth to your education. You want to get a little bit of everything if you can. Is that any more questions? All right, I think we're set. All right, sorry. Any more questions? I'm still on. Oh, thank you. Well, thank you, yeah. Any questions, you know? How long does it take to make stuff? What's my favorite wood?
What is your favorite wood?
My favorite wood. My favorite wood is probably, right now it's ash, which is kind of a bummer because there's this like invasive beetle that's killing a lot of the ash trees. You know, so I'm kind of using it as often as I can because, you know, it may not be around in the next 10 years, which is sad, but so I'm trying to use ash as much as I can. So ash is also used to make like guitars and baseball bats, so it'll affect you if you're a music player or a baseball player.
Is it hard to work with mahogany?
Is it hard to work with mahogany? Mahogany is a yes and no. Mahogany is a really broad term, so then we have to, you know, we'd say, is it Honduran mahogany? Is it African mahogany? It can be hard to work with mahogany, but some of it's pretty easy to work with. It's hard to get. Real mahogany is hard to get.
Tell us about yourself as an artist. And yeah, what inspires you as an artist?
What inspires me as an artist? You know, what I really like to do is I'm happiest when I'm working with my hands, which is why I'm a woodworker, a furniture designer. You know, and I like to kind of problem solve. You know, so, you know, like that's what like kind of keeps me up at night is like, did I solve that problem the way I wanted to, or like, could I make that better? You know, could I make it faster? Could I make it better?
You said that wood is alive. What do you mean by that?
Oh, wood is alive. So I'm famous in my classes, where does wood come from? And if you don't yell trees at me within 2 minutes, we've got an issue. Yeah, I mean, wood is alive, and like, think about your wood frame house creaks at night, and it's because, moisture is coming in and out of it. It comes from a tree, so it's gonna always, even though we like force it into something like a table, it always wants to, it remembers its tree, right? It remembers the memory it had as a tree.
Can you tell us about your first and favorite wood pieces you made?
Okay, last question here. Can you tell us about your first and favorite wood pieces? There's like a chair that I painted when I was like 6 that my parents still have, so I think that. And what's funny is it's this like blue color that I use in a lot of my work. So it's always fun to kind of look back and you're like, man, you've always been who you are, or there's something about that color that I haven't been able to get out of my brain for, decades.